Hi, I'm Samantha Gassman, and today I'm joined by Jack Child and Sultan Camp, and we're going to talk about a few things relating to veterans and what they can do with their social media presence and their online presence as a whole. So first, to get started, Jack, I'll have you introduce yourself, please, sir.
Hey, thanks, Samantha. My name's Jack Child. I'm the founder of Veteran Service Brands. It's an umbrella organization for four veteran exclusive franchises. Our first brand was G-Force. That's a parking lot striping and pavement maintenance franchise. We now have 30 locations, going on 33, probably about the time this gets published. We're launching 3 new brands simultaneously, so our plate is kind of full right now. Field Ops, which is our athletic field marking franchise. It's a very low cost franchise, great, kind of entry position business, if you will. Mach 1 epoxy floors, and Paint Corps, like Marine Corps. It's a home painting franchise. Those 3 brands launch in January 2022, and I'm happy to be here to share kind of my experience with working with veterans.
Great, thank you, Jack. Sultan?
Yeah, hey, Sam, Jack, pleasure to be here. My name is Sultan Camp, Navy veteran. This is my 12th year on this side of the uniform. And I've got the real good privilege of being a part of the Hampton Roads Workforce Council as the director for both of our 2 Hampton Roads Veteran Employment Centers. So, a nutshell, what our centers are lighthouses in that ocean of goodwill based on 4 pillars, which is small business ownership, education, employment, healthcare, housing, and support services. So what does that mean? We actually have physical vetted resources in here at given times for our military community. Let's say they wanted to start a small business. Well, in this location, we've got SCORE. We've got all of those entities present, so they don't have to go to 16 different places and figure out whether they're veteran or not. Happy to be here.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started with a few questions for you. The first one is, what are the pros and cons of job hunters having social media accounts?
I'll go first if you like. I think there are plenty of both. We'll start with the pros. Social media, it makes others who might be interested in offering your employment aware that you're in the market for employment. If you build your LinkedIn profile, and I'm a strong believer in the LinkedIn community, you have to work on that profile. It's not something that occurs overnight. Have solid connections, be engaging, use that to support the communities that you feel strongly about, and let folks know that you're out there and what you can contribute to whatever that particular cause might be, or something you might read about in terms of business. So I think there's a real positive there. One of the negatives I'm seeing is LinkedIn is sometimes moving a little towards Facebook, and it becomes kind of this highly charged environment. It's a lot of content on there that frankly I don't think it belongs there. And when we see applicants engaging with those type of posts, it tends to, I think it tends to diminish perhaps their position in the eyes of an employer or someone who might want to work with them. Sure. So I think it's great, but it definitely has some landmines to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sultan, anything to add on that?
Yeah, Jack brings up some really good points. I always tell a lot of our military community that 90% of your transition success, whether it's small business ownership or finding a job, or even going back to school, is determined by who you know. And the other 10% is the ability to follow up. And social networking is an extension of that, right? So the old school techniques are still relevant. However, it's the new school technologies that intersect there. So what does that mean? The first word in social networking is social. And this is kind of like the pro and the con, right? So it's easier than ever for Jack and I and Sam, yourself and I, to connect virtually, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, whatever that channel is. But at the same time, I'm not going to meet you online and then ask you for the keys for your car, like literally right after. And that's one of the biggest cons, is that a lot of, I think it goes back to maybe some folks want it to be more transactional in nature and instead of building a relationship. So that's a huge con, is that they're not necessarily aware that you're building a relationship. There's some social capital involved, that just like you want to get to know that person wants to know you. So one of the biggest cons is, I would say, a lot of us go in for the ask too early, as opposed to being patient, figuring out how you can add value to your new network addition. And then after you've started building that social credibility, then ask for something.
Right. That's a great point. And Sultan, what was that statistic you told me about the number of interactions it takes before you ask for something?
I got you. So that's Gary V's. So I can't claim it as my own. So Gary Vaynerchuk, for those of you who want to follow him and read his books on social media, I highly recommend. But typically about seven interactions. So what does that mean? If I see one of Jack's companies on Twitter, on Instagram, there's probably a social media manager managing that profile, especially at a larger company. So I follow that company. I like something that they post. I share that with my network. I comment on it. And after I've done that, over an extended period of time, then I pose the question, hey, you guys are a phenomenal company. I'd really like to probably become a franchisee. How do I do that? And now that person, that real life person, is going to be more willing to kind of help you out, as opposed to, hey, got any jobs?
Right. So all these things that we've talked about, these are true for everybody, but veterans as a community are very unique. So what type of challenges do we face as vets when we first start going into the job market?
Gotcha. Sam, our lack of network, man. If we did an audit of our network while we're on active duty, chances are they all look like us, right? So we go from our apartment or base housing to our unit, and then, we stray out and go to the commissary or the PX and exchange, living on the wild side.
Yeah.
But if we asked ourselves the question, if we did an audit of our network and asked ourselves the question, how many people do we know that can either hire us directly because they're a hiring decision maker, or how many people do we know that could put us directly in front of someone who hires? A lot of times when we ask ourselves that question, the answer is zero.
Right.
So that's one of the unique things, is our civilian counterparts, they're out there in the job market. They're used to, meeting people that don't have a uniform. Because I always tell folks that the easiest way to become invisible on post is to put on a suit and walk through. Nobody acknowledges you, right? Because they don't have to salute you. So that's one of the unique challenges that we face, is that we just don't have a network outside of the military to really kind of open up those doors for us.
That's great stuff, Sultan. I think you've nailed it right on the head there.
So with that in
We've done
mind,
this before.
yeah. So with that in mind, Jack and Sultan, how can veterans then, as a community, leverage their online presence and their social media accounts to help them bridge that gap between when they transition from the uniform into the civilian market?
Well, so we're in the process of hiring currently, and we've had a great response out of LinkedIn by job postings. And from right there, I can learn a lot about a person by their activity on LinkedIn, in many ways more so than what I'm reading on the resume. Because the resumes, to be honest, when you get 203 days, they all start blending together, and it's like, I've read this before.
Right.
But I'm trying to get to that person. I'm trying to find their character, their attitude, their aptitude, their frankly, their positivity, that personality. And if that personality gets reflected on LinkedIn or Facebook as being angry or can't work with others, they just go to the bottom of the stack. And then you'll find others who are using it magnificently. And I don't know whether it's by design or following Gary V's. And by the way, I'm a fan of Gary V, back when he was just promoting wines way back when.
Right.
That's how he started, was
Mhm.
promoting wines. He was one of the first to use social media. I mean, Gary Vee is here because of social media, right? And I got to see him speak in person. But anyway, getting back to using social media, I think that I can get a very good feel for someone in moments. And then that causes me to go look at their resume. I don't look at the resume first. I'm looking, you can, on LinkedIn, you can say, see all activity. You can click on that and you can see what they're interacting with and what interests them. And they don't have to share my interests, but it's the sort of thing you start to get a feel for really who they are. And certainly, at least at an executive level hiring, you're not, it's not quite the same as finding someone who's just trying to fill an assembly line position. You're really, there's more personalities involved, and that's where I think social media, it can be wonderful, but it can also, I think, be unknowingly a big hurdle for some to get hired. We've rejected quite a few folks based on some things we've seen on LinkedIn, but I'm not going to reach out and tell them they need to clean up the LinkedIn profile, but I think, maybe someone should. So,
Yeah.
Well, and that's the benefit, right? Is everything on LinkedIn is things that you own, either organic content that you produce and you write yourself, or the way in which you interact with people.
Exactly. Yeah. Retweeting something or liking it is essentially saying that this is what you support. And if you look at my social media profile, I'm all about dogs, and I'm willing to die on that hill. So if someone doesn't like dogs, I'm okay, but there are other hills I don't think are worth dying. And I see some folks that are kind of limiting their options, and that's a shame. Things are so polarized right now, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Sultan,
Yeah,
how do you
that's
feel folks can leverage their online accounts?
that's absolutely a good gouge there, Jack. So it goes back to my 90-10 rule, right? So 90% who you know, 10% follow up, yet only 10% of military professionals follow up, right? So what does that mean? Through those transition classes, I don't care which one you went to, they told you to get onto LinkedIn.
Yes, they did.
Right?
They
They
gave you a
told
premium
you.
membership too for a year.
Right. But only 10% of the folks that go through those workshops actually get on LinkedIn, set up a profile, they take the time to complete it. So to Jack's point, that's the talented temp. If you're willing to actually put some skin in the game and create a LinkedIn profile, learn how to use it strategically, they're lesser qualified people getting hired because they know how to leverage social media effectively. So the first thing, how can they leverage their online presence? Be there. Actually get online, right? And then be social. Don't be overly concerned with having the perfect LinkedIn profile. Find people that make sense for you to grow your network, and then figure out how you help them out. Sam, you and I discussed this. There's a lot of focus out there on building your brand. Well, when you're building your brand, you're trying to be like the one only person doing that. If you really concentrate on building your reputation, it's a pay it forward attempt, right? So, hey, Jack, I know what you do. I think I have the tools to help you. Let me try to help you, or at least introduce you to someone who I think can help you. And entail that, that kind of breeds success to your online presence. People get to know, hey, you know what? Sam is a phenomenal writer, man. And when someone needs a writer, you're going to be the top of mind. So, just be social and a good person. Do the right thing.
Yeah.
Which we're all very accustomed to, hopefully, as transitioning service members. We all have instilled values. That's why presumably we joined the armed services. So hopefully that won't be too difficult for folks to transition that in a new way to this new market where they have to have that type of presence.
Absolutely.
If I might, could I piggyback on Sultan's comment there about the follow-up? I'm like I mentioned, I've got several hundred applications. I've only had a handful send me a private message, and they all got attention from me. Not all of the other 195 were, I wasn't able to sort out exactly, who needs to get to the, top 10%, but those, I think it was 4 or 5, I spent extra time on their resumes and had some interviews with those folks. So that follow through, that 10%, it's smaller than 10%, at least on my from my recent experience this week. So
Right.
That's definitely a pro. I mean, now you have access to all of these companies, these individuals who are hiring, in a new way that you didn't have before. If,
Oh, yeah.
folks are looking up Jack Child or Sultan Camp online, they're going to find maybe this interview. They might find an article. They might find a Business Insider thing, Sultan, that you wrote. So you get that insider baseball right into what folks are looking for. And it really doesn't take that much work or effort to do that research, so that when you go to interview, you're asking smart questions and you can speak intelligently about the company that you want to get hired in.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So last question for you, gentlemen, before we wrap it up today. So what advice would you have for transitioning veterans?
Well, I would, dovetailing with the social media, once you get that opening, make sure your resume is tidied up and make it interesting. I think there are perhaps two types of employers: one who's using a program to look for keywords, and another like myself I'm a visual person. I need to see a good presentation, proper grammar, syntax, spelling, help me understand who you are with the way you lay it out. I think that's important. And maybe even have a friend or someone who doesn't know you well do a little oppo research on you, if you will. Like, who are you? If I'm going to consider you as an employee, I Google your name, what happens? What comes up there? And if there's some things that maybe don't really reflect who you are, or that you're not don't want shared, maybe it's time to take those down and kind of clean up your social media resume as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's my suggestion, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I would say use social media to figure out, who's hiring people like you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a military spouse, if you're a veteran, LinkedIn has over 700 million profiles. So there is no reason you can't insert your branch of service, what your current rank is, and then let LinkedIn do the search, right? So you then start looking at, if I'm looking at a particular geographic location, who are the folks like me in that location? What companies are they working at? We do it on our smartphones. When we're looking for a seafood restaurant, we type in seafood restaurant and voila, here's a list of results. The last thing you want to do is apply to a company that's never hired someone like you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to buck the trend. They're not going to say, okay, well, hey, let's go ahead and take a chance on this one. Let the data that you find on social media guide your decisions. So you're making informed decisions. Okay, well, hey, company A has actually hired a lieutenant from the Marine Corps into this position. Our backgrounds are identical. So that then allows you to have a target list of companies, a target list of positions, and then, as Jack alluded to, a target list of people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those are people you could directly reach out to. And if they're fellow veterans, they're going to be open to that reception. The important reason that I say have a target list of companies is that when you reach out, once again, it goes back to being social, right? So I'm not going to reach out to you, Sam, and say, hey, Sam, I see that you work at ABC company and I want to work there.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, hey, listen, saw that you are a fellow soldier and would love to learn what your experience is. How do you like what they do?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're having a conversation that's outside of the interest of getting a job and less transactional.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for your insight, your input today. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Sultan.
Thanks.
Bye.